I think people don't realize how often they deal with contracts just kind of on a regular basis. Every time you order a cup of coffee, for example, it's a contractual relationship. You, as the customer, are walking up to the barista, seeing a suggested price, and then making that offer. And then the coffee shop is honoring that by performing and giving you a cup of coffee in exchange. It's not a very complicated transaction and it rarely goes sideways, so there's not much need to write that down into a written contract, but it's still a contractual relationship. It's for two reasons that you'd want to write a contract down. One of them is if the parties get confused about the terms of the contract, they can go back to this document, maybe remind each other what their obligations are or remind themselves, and it'll head off a dispute if you've got a very clear contract explaining all of the terms of performance. The other reason that contracts are important is if there's a breach, the contract is going to determine what the remedies are to the party that was harmed by the breach of contract. It's to remind you what your obligations are, and then as a last resort, it's to remind the court what the other party's obligations are so that if you need to sue, you can. When small businesses are starting out, it's common for them to pull contract terms from contracts that they've seen. That can actually get you a long ways. It's not a bad idea to look at other people's contracts and pull from those provisions. But it's really important to understand what each of those provisions are, because some of those provisions you might need to tweak based on your actual needs. For example, it's really common to see in a big contract to see a provision called governing law. And in that, you'll see something like, in the event of a dispute between these parties, the governing law that will apply will be the law of the state of Washington or the state of Oregon or wherever. Just having a governing law provision doesn't really tell the parties where they're going to litigate. It just says what choice of law applies. So if the contract is executed and performed and breached in Texas, you're going to have to litigate in Texas applying Washington law. And everybody's going to be very confused by that, including the judge, and it's going to be a really inefficient way to litigate the dispute. You need to look at each of these provisions carefully to determine how it's going to apply to your particular situation. To sum it up, it's really important to look at each provision in your contract, even if you use it over and over again, because your individual situation might differ between transactions. Reviewing all of these carefully and enlisting the support you need is essential for all small businesses. So if you need any help reviewing contracts, drafting contracts, or you just want to bounce some ideas around, give me a call. I'm here to help.